Hey, what's up, guys? My phone literally fell at the last second, right when I was about to go live. As you can tell by the title, today I'm going to be making a spoiler review on the movie It, which came out today. I watched it in the theaters. Today I'm going to be doing an in-depth spoiler review, and towards the end of this live stream, I will also be making a small little rant, which I'll probably end up making into a full video pretty soon, so I'm not gonna go in depth with that rant. So, anyways, as I said before, I recently watched the movie It in the theaters. I'm gonna say it right now and get this out of the way. It was an awesome film. It was scary. There was jump scares, but unlike movies like Paranormal Activity and whatnot, or modern horror day movies, these aren't fake jump scares, or as I like to call them, false scares, which is when the tension starts like rising, and then like something pops out, but it's not like it's an example. Oh, here's an example. So say like it's a ghost movie or something, and then there's like something moving, and they're like shining the lights in the dark, and the music's like raising the tension of the scene, and then they find out it's just like the dog walking around, and it's like a whole jump scare sound and whatnot. This film actually does not have false scares. It has real jump scares with Pennywise. He actually comes out and scares the kids in jump scare form at times, and it's actually pretty cool. I have to say right now, Bill Skarsgård, I believe is how you pronounce his name, he was incredibly awesome as Pennywise. Now, I know I used to find Tim Curry's Pennywise creepy originally, but after watching the new It film, Bill Skarsgård is definitely the best Pennywise we've ever seen. Like, he is creepy. He is actually, at times, he can be kind of funny, the way he acts. But most of all, they improved on how he looks when he eats, like, or when he's about to eat somebody or like something. It's really awesome. Now, the trailers were kind of misleading on some scenes, which is something I talked about towards the end of episode 1 of the live stream. I'm gonna go close my door very quickly. But anyways, as I was saying, sorry about this. I usually don't do this, but I forgot to close my door. Anyways, as I was saying, hold up, where was I? Oh, yeah. Thanks to CGI, which we now have in our current era of filmmaking, we actually, Pennywise, when he opens his mouth and it's like full of teeth, I don't know if you've seen the original miniseries or anything, but that actually happens. It looks so much better now compared to how it used to. Although back then, with Tim Curry's Pennywise, it was prosthetics. With CGI, they did so much more, and now, when he opens his jaw, it looks so much scarier. Like, I'd shit myself in real life if I were to see that. I'm just taking these, some drinks because I talk too much, and I end up getting dehydrated. Yeah, I'm known for talking a lot, which is why I kind of like to do videos. Anyways, as I was saying, Pennywise looks so much scarier now, and the movie starts off, now we're gonna go in-depth here. Before that, I can't even make up my mind of how we're gonna do this in order, because usually when I record these, like, as actual reviews, like I did with Spider-Man Homecoming, Mushino, and Godzilla the Force of Nature, it's so much easier to organize those videos because I can write down scripts of, so I can remember so I can remember my exact opinions on the film after first watching it. But I can remember everything about this film. Now, the actor who plays Richie in this film, if you don't know who Richie is, he is, if you haven't seen the trailers, he is the kid with curly hair and glasses. That is Richie. He is a comedic relief of this film in some points, but actually all the characters are funny at some points. For example, Eddie, when he gets like super mad and like starts cussing and shit like that, he is hilarious. But Richie Richie takes the spotlight in this film. It feels like him and Eddie have like this like friendly hatred for each other, if you can like kind of get what I mean. Like they mess around with each other as friends, and it's really funny. Richie also has some funny moments just by himself as well, and it's hilarious. He also does have an awesome moment during the final battle, which is so awesome, but I'll get into that later. Alright, all the actors did really well in this film, especially Bill Skarsgård, but the children, not once did they feel like they were left in the back. But they weren't too fleshed out either. It wasn't like the book, because the book had a lot of time to actually flesh out the characters and whatnot, but I haven't read the book yet, so I'm not like expert on this. Don't kill me if I get information wrong. But there's a lot of things from the book that this film references, and it doesn't exactly show it because I guess it would kind of scar the younger actors, as was stated by the director. And there's actually a few moments like that. One of the main ones is when the Losers Club are in the sewers, and they have an orgy. And it's pretty freaking weird in the book. I've heard about this. I haven't read it myself, but it was a weird... I can tell it was a weird moment in the book just from hearing, like, the name of that scene. I'm glad it wasn't in the film, honestly. However, there are multiple occasions in which we do get a little bit of flirting between Bill and Beverly, and also Beverly and Ben, because in the original miniseries, it was Beverly who had a crush on Ben, and Bill just didn't have a crush on Beverly at all. In this new film, Bill has a crush on Beverly, and Ben also has a crush on Beverly. So it's not like a love triangle. I like how it doesn't focus too much on like them fighting each other over Beverly or anything. That would have been pretty dumb, but I'm glad what they did with the film. As I said before, the children, the actors are really, really good in this film. It feels like they were actual characters. There was a few moments where I didn't actually see them as actors. I saw them as real kids who were terrified of this clown. We do get to see a little bit of Pennywise's true form towards the end of the film as well, and I'll get into that later. So, before we go in depth with like how it starts and all that, and like talking about all the scenes that I can remember, Georgie in this film, I like him a lot more better than the original Georgie from the miniseries. I don't know why, I just found this Georgie to be more adorable and more believable as a kid who would fall for the trick of the clown. But also the original Georgie looked gullible enough to fall for that as well. But I have to admit, Georgie's death scene in this movie was so much better than the miniseries, and this is where we're gonna get in depth now. So the film starts off showing us Bill's house, and Bill's like sick, right? And one thing they did get right about Bill in this film that they didn't with the miniseries is that Bill stutters. I heard he stutters in the book, and he does in this movie too. And I didn't really get annoyed by it, actually. I found it to be really nice for the character, since it's from the book, apparently. But it also kind of made his character, in a way, get more antagonized by Pennywise towards the end of the film. And it's funny because Pennywise does kind of like mock him for stuttering and whatnot, and it's just so much fun in this film. I will say, there was a lot of comedy moments in this film, but, you know, at times it feels it fits because you have to remember, these are kind of like 13 or 12-year-old kids, so that means that of course they're gonna like be saying this type of stuff, and of course they're gonna be joking around at times, and it's really nice. But there's also the scary moments in this film, so it's not like complete comedy. Like if you look back at the original miniseries now, if you're like 13 or older, it looks like a full-on comedy now. But this film, I am definitely buying on Blu-ray, and whenever it comes out. So anyways, back to the in-depth part. So Georgie, it's raining outside, and Georgie wants Bill to make him a boat. Bill agrees, but Georgie has to go down into the cellar to get a few stuff for the boat to be able to float. So he's down there, and there is a little small false scare, but it's not a jump scare. It shows like glowing things in the dark, and it looks kind of like Pennywise's eyes, or how they would look. And kind of in the dark, they make it look like it's actually an outline of Pennywise down there, because you can kind of see like the hair sticking out and whatnot, but not like the shadow. Basically, it's kind of hard, right? So he shines a light there, and it's I believe they were magnifying glasses. For some reason they had like a light shine on them for some reason. I'm not sure. That part was pretty confusing, but it was still pretty good. It was a false scare, however, but it didn't bother me because there was like no jump scare to go with it, so that's nice. So, right, Bill makes the boat for Georgie. Georgie goes out, and before he goes out to play with the boat, he waves one last time to Bill from his window, and he just runs off and plays with his bow in the water. So he puts it down and he's like chasing and all that. If you've seen the first trailer, you can remember that it showed like the first person view of Georgie, and he like hits this little kind of barrier type thing. He hits his head and it falls into the water. That part was in the film. I'm glad that wasn't cut out because it was actually kind of funny, that part. It was also in the trailer when I saw it. The problem is that there was a moment in that, and not in the movie, but in my movie theater where that part I couldn't enjoy as much as I wanted to because of something that happened in the theater, which I'll get into in the rant towards the end of this video. The rant has nothing to do with the movie, by the way. I actually love this movie a lot. I didn't have any problems with it. But, anyways, yeah, the rant's gonna be in the end. So Georgie continues to chase the boat. It falls into the storm drain, and Pennywise comes out. He's down there, and he looks creepy. And, I love how much attention and detail they paid to, they paid so much attention to detail on Pennywise, because while Pennywise is talking to Georgie, you can see him like drooling over how hungry he is to kill and eat Georgie, and it was so awesome. It looks so creepy, and he's over there talking to Georgie, and Georgie actually says, "I think it's time to go now," and Pennywise is like, "Without your boat," and it was so awesome. So Georgie, once he says, "Okay, I'll get it," this is an awesome moment as well. I believe they did use CGI for this part. Pennywise's eyes go from blue to back to orange, and it was awesome as hell. So Georgie reaches in there, and then you can see Pennywise's mouth grow open as he actually bites Georgie's arm off, and you see this, unlike in the original miniseries where it shows his like large teeth come out on the Tim Curry Pennywise, and it just cuts. This film shows you in full detail the death of Georgie, and it was awesome. It was terrifying, but it was awesome, okay? And at first I thought the CGI looked kind of goofy on Pennywise, but towards the end of the film, I learned why it looks kind of goofy, and I'll get into that in a bit. So his mouth like opens, and all these teeth come out. It's like 3 layers of teeth at first, and he bites Georgie's arm off, and you could see like the blood come off and the arm fall in, and Georgie actually jumps back and tries to crawl away, but Pennywise manages to extend his arm somehow, grabs Georgie by the foot, and all you see is like an aerial view, like a view from above of Georgie, and he gets dragged into the storm drain, and it was awesome. So then that all took place in October of 1988, that scene, and then it cuts to June of 1989, which is the end of school for the summer, and this is where we're introduced to our characters. Bill, Richie, and Eddie come out of the classroom, and they're talking, right? And Stan catches up with them as well, and they're just in a group talking, and they start dumping their shit, all their books and stuff in the backpack, and Richie makes a hilarious joke, because I believe it was Stan or Eddie who said, "I've never felt this good," and then Richie replies saying, "Have you ever tickled your pickle?" Have you ever tickled your pickle? And I was fucking laughing, dude. Richie is literally the comedic relief of this film, and not once did he actually get annoying, in my opinion. I found him to be super hilarious. He just couldn't take anything seriously until towards the end of the film. Alright? And I have to say right now, the Losers Club, I believe they had about they had only two major confrontations with Pennywise, and they were both really well done and really well acted. The kids truly did look terrifying in the first fight with Pennywise, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Where was I? Oh, okay, yeah. So we're introduced to the four main people of the Losers Club, which is Bill, Stan, Eddie, and Richie. So then we see Bev, and she's like getting bullied by this girl, but she also smokes as well, and she's just like 13 years old. I can't remember if this was also in the books or not. I still have to read my book. I have mine pre-ordered because they're all sold out right now. Like, once the movie was announced, everybody started buying the books and shit, and my library didn't even have any. So we get introduced to Ben, right? We get introduced to Bev, or Beverly, and she's like getting bullied and all this stuff. So then she starts walking out of the school, and she meets Ben. This is where Ben kind of starts to get a crush on her. And you can kind of see Beverly actually being really friendly to Ben. And Ben is the new kid on the block, as he was in the miniseries and probably was in the book as well. And I have to admit, I like Ben, his character. He was not like the strongest of the group or anything. He wasn't like the funniest either, but he had like the most shit done to him in this movie. Holy crap, he got injured so much. Right? So back to the Bill, Stan, Eddie, and Richie, who don't after the whole Richie joke. We have Henry and his little group of bullies with him, and they just like start picking on the four main characters of the Losers Club, Jesus Christ. So they're like picking on them and all that, and Henry's dad is right there as well, because apparently this girl went missing from the school, and her mom is there with the police outside in front, hoping to see her daughter, but her daughter we saw got killed by Pennywise. Like, I'll get into that soon, because Losers Club does end up finding her later on in the movie. I'll get into that later again, though. That's during the first fight. So, anyways, as I was saying before, holy crap, sorry, you guys. Thought my toy broke for a second there. Anyways, where was I? Oh, okay, yeah, they're getting bullied, right? And we also see Ben start to get bullied as well by Henry and his gang. I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head. Yeah, okay, yeah, he's getting bullied by Henry and all that, and like Henry is about to carve his name into Ben's stomach with his knife, but he manages to like kind of cut in an H, and he's about to do the whole name when Ben like kicks him and then does kind of like he accidentally flips over the fence backwards and then starts rolling down the hill, and he gets fucked up during that. Like, he literally hit himself so much and while going down the hill, and he's like all bleeding and stuff, and he's running. The bullies chase after him. Henry loses his knife. Two go and follow him. One of them gets lost in the forest, but nothing happens to him. At least we didn't see anything happen to him. Another one, I forgot what his name was, but he was shown in the trailer on the missing sign. Another one goes and looks for Ben. Ben runs into the other boys, which is Eddie, Richie, Stan, and Bill. And they're exploring kind of at the entrance of a sewer to look for, find Georgie and find the girl that I mentioned earlier that was missing. They find her shoe in the water, which Eddie calls gray water. In case you don't know, Eddie is kind of afraid of disease in a way. He's kind of like this clean kid. He likes to be sanitary and whatnot. He also has an inhaler. Same one I have. That was nice. I even had my inhaler too on me. I don't know why. Anyways, so he catches up with them, and they go to, I guess it's kind of like a Walgreens type place, but it's not actually Walgreens, to go and get some stuff to, help Ben, like, by patching him up and whatnot, because he is, like, bleeding and all that. So, the bully that I said was chasing after Ben, he goes into the sewer thinking Ben went in there, and he's, like, going down and down, and he hears like these kids' voices, and it's actually of the dead kids that Pennywise had killed at that time as well. So they're there, and they're kind of like zombie-like things, which was actually pretty cool to see. And they like scare this bully, and he has like a kind of I don't know if it's spray paint or like spray deodorant, and he has like a lighter, and he's using it like a flamethrower. That was really cool, the flamethrower part. And like he sees a balloon behind him, and it's just like going up to his face, and it says "I heart dairy." It pops, and Pennywise is right there, and he like opens his jaw again. There's like 3 or 4 layers of teeth, and he just runs at the bully, and you just see him like tackle him, just start eating him, and it cuts back to the Losers Club, and they're over there buying supplies to help patch up Ben. Once they're inside, they actually bump into Beverly, who distracts the pharmacist. I believe that's what they're called. They work at the pharmacy, yeah, whatever, inside the store. It's kind of like Walgreens, as I said before. She's distracting him while Bill, Eddie, and Richie, and Stan, Bill, and Eddie, because Richie was outside watching Ben. So they rob the supplies, basically, because they just walk out of the store without paying. And that's when they start patching Ben up. Beverly comes out, and Bill sees her, and she walks up to them and sees that Bill's all hurt. And she actually does kind of flirt with Ben in a part in some way, because she says, I believe, I'm not gonna exactly quote her, but I'm gonna try and remember exactly what she said. She said something like, "Looks like you guys didn't get the right equipment to help him." And she like looks at Ben and just winks at him while he's sitting down. That was a little nice to see, because kind of to the miniseries, a little nod to that. Alright, so then we're introduced to Mike. Kind of early on in the film as well, but definitely not after the whole helping Ben's part. But we are introduced to Mike, who is, I'm not exactly sure where, but I believe he's in a farm with his grandfather, and he like gets sent to the city. I forgot why, or he goes into the city. And he's over there, and I guess he was taking, like, meat to this, what do you call them? They sell, like, meat over there at the store. I forgot what it's called, though. He's taking the meat over there, and he goes to the back entrance to take it in. And there's, like, these, like, the door starts rattling, and so does the chain that's holding the door, that's, like, has the door locked. And these hands just start coming out, like burned hands. At first I thought they were like zombie hands, but there's also a fire back there, and we end up learning why Mike is seeing this. But there's like burned hands, and they're trying to escape. Kind of, if you've seen the first episode of The Walking Dead, you remember like the don't open dead inside doors where the zombies' hands or their fingers are like crawling out in between the doors. That's kind of what happens in this scene as well. And Mike is like shitting himself at this point. And the hands go back inside, and the like what looks like a fire inside just goes out, and the door just slams wide open. Mike is there on the ground, all terrified, and then the next thing he sees is Pennywise hanging on those little hooks that hold the meat, and he's over there just eating the meat from the hook, and he's like swinging around everywhere. And he sees Mike, gets off the chain or the hook, and then he starts waving like this, and his eyes glow orange, and that's kind of where we were misled in the trailer. In the trailer, it looks like the whole Losers Club there, and I thought there was also going to be like confrontation as well. It shows like the Losers Club, and then in the trailer it shows the Losers Club, and it cuts to them, or it cuts to Pennywise in the meat locker, and he's like his eyes are glowing. I thought originally that was going to be like a confrontation. I even talked about that scene from the trailer in the first episode of the Ultimate Gamer 803 podcast, and it was. Although it was not a confrontation, Pennywise still looked creepy as hell in that scene. And he ends up, like, disappearing, and everything goes back to normal, and there's, like, a butcher there, standing there wondering why Mike is just on the floor. And, you know, I guess some time passes, and then Henry, with his car, again, this was earlier because all bullies were in there. I believe this was before they actually started picking on Ben. Before they caught up to Ben. So they're over there, and they start, like, saying something to Mike. or at least Henry does. He says, "Don't come back to my town." So I'm assuming Henry was kind of like racist in a way. He hated Mike for his skin color, but that wasn't exactly explained in the film because he does kind of say the same thing a couple times every time he confronts Mike. He says, "Don't come back to my town." So they just do that. They throw stuff at him for a little bit and they just drive off. And that was just a short little confrontation with the bullies that Mike had. He does have a bigger one later on, and it's kind of similar to the miniseries. I don't know if that same scene was in the book, but we'll get into that in a bit. So I'm trying to remember here. So Beverly joins the Losers Club, and I believe I'm remembering this exactly. So she joins the Losers Club, and if I'm correct, this is where they end up finding Mike because I guess the bullies caught back up to Mike, and he's like fighting, or they're like fighting with him. They like have his face against the rocks on the floor, and they're like stepping on him and kicking him. And he sees Pennywise in like the bushes, and he has like a hand of a kid, and he starts using it to wave like hi as he's like holding an arm in his hand. He's like shaking the fucking arm around, like waving hi towards Mike. And the Losers Club shows up, and they start throwing rocks at the bullies, and they have like the rock war. And this part was actually funny because Richie he starts yelling rock war, but while he's saying war, he gets cut off because he gets a rock thrown into his head. The theater I was in actually laughed at that scene, and I did too because it was pretty funny. And we have like this whole little rock war, and then the Losers Club ends up winning because the bullies retreat, and they end up just running off, the bullies and the Loser Club. And I believe before this scene, actually, a whole other bunch of shit happened, because I believe this is the scene where they're talking about, like, seeing Pennywise, and I don't remember if this was after or before the whole blood in the sink part. I didn't take a notebook to write down notes with me, so I'm trying to remember this as best I can. Yeah, I believe it is, I believe the whole scene where they're talking about, like, seeing the clown, I believe that happens before the rock war, and before those two scenes, it's the bill where he sees Georgie as, like, the whole Pennywise hallucination type thing. And what happens is he's, like, sleeping in bed, and, wait a second. Oh my god, dude, I'm so confused right now. Okay, so, yeah, this happens after the sink scene, right? Because Beverly, like, she has, she's, like, in the sink, she's, like, cutting her hair and whatnot, and, like, the next day she goes back into the, bathroom again because she found this note from Ben, so she goes inside her tub and she starts reading the note, and she hears voices coming from the sink, you know, little drain there in the bottom of the sink. And she goes closer and closer, and she has, like, this, measuring, tape, and she puts it all the way down, the little drain in the sink, or all the way down the sink, and when she pulls it back up, there's, like, blood at the end of it, and, like, this hair starts, like, grabbing her and stuff. It's kind of like the symbiote from Spider-Man. It, like, wraps around her and all that, and pulls her closer to the sink, and her head's, like, right in front of it, and the blood just starts pouring out, and whatnot. She starts screaming. Her dad comes in, and then he's like, what the hell is going on? And he doesn't see the blood, but Beverly doesn't know this, because she sees blood all over the bathroom, and she's in the corner of the bathroom crying and all terrified, but her dad doesn't see the blood at all. So she's there, and she thinks she's crazy. And later on, she ends up showing the Losers Club this. And right after the scene where it's her and her dad in the bathroom and she's, like, crying and terrified, it cuts to Bill. This is where we see the scene from the end of the first trailer. And he's, like, trying to sleep, and he has, like, a drawing of Beverly, and this proves that he has a crush on her, because he's, like, drawing Beverly, and then there's, like, anyways, sorry, I got a notification, I was reading it. It's raining outside, and it starts pouring from his roof. The water starts leaking, and it, like, falls in his drawing, and he wakes up because he fell asleep. And he gets a bucket from the closet, which is out in the hallway, and he brings it to his room. Right as he's in front of the doorway to his room, he hears the light turn on in Georgie's room. So he goes in there, right? He's looking around, and he sees Georgie's Lego turtle that he built. Not Bill, but Georgie built it. And he's there crying, and then he hears or sees a shadow in the hallway run, and he hears like Georgie's giggling. So he goes and follows this Georgie down to the cellar. And once he goes down there, he sees Georgie in the corner of the cellar by the washing machines. And Bill actually thought it was Georgie. He thought Georgie came home, and he was like, he had like tears of joy, and he was happy to see Georgie again. And Georgie's like, "I'm sorry, Bill, I lost it. Please don't get mad at me." And then Bill's like, "I'm not mad at you." And then Georgie says, "If you come down here, you'll float too." And it's that whole part from the trailer where he's like, "You'll float too!" And like Pennywise comes up, and Pennywise is there next to Georgie, or the hallucination of Georgie that Pennywise created. He's there next to him, also saying, "You'll float too." In the water is like his head's sticking up, but the rest of his body's under the water. And he just comes up, or he grabs Georgie by the back of the head, this little hallucination. It's not really Georgie. He grabs it and then, like, smashes the Georgie hallucination into the water and yells, "You'll float too." And then he starts chasing after Bill, and he almost gets him. And this is where a lot of the people in my theater actually screamed, because he was about to get Bill and he hits the stairs. Pennywise hits the stairs, and Bill manages to escape. And the next day, he tells the Losers Club about this, and it's the whole scene where it's like, "I saw something," and Eddie's like, "A clown," and whatnot, because Eddie he was passing by the Neighbor house where Pennywise lives, and there was what he calls a leper there, and I guess it was kind of like a homeless person with like diseases, but I'm not exactly sure. And like he got so scared, and he started running around the Neighbor house, and he was in the backyard. And this leper disappears, and it's just Pennywise with the group of balloons there, like a upside down triangle. And he lets the balloons float and tells Eddie, "It's your turn to float." And then Eddie's sitting there against the gate trying to get out as he's screaming for his life. And Pennywise, just like, you can see his mouth slowly opening as the teeth start coming out, like the sharp teeth. And Eddie manages to actually escape. I forgot exactly how, though. He crawls under the gate and gets away, but Pennywise disappears before that. I forgot why. Anyways, he escapes, right? And there's like this whole parade type thing that's going on. I don't know if it was for the 4th of July or not. It kind of looked like it was. I'm assuming it was. It didn't say anything about like the month, or at least I didn't see that. And it's Mike, and it's the whole Losers Club, and they're like talking about what they're afraid of, and they're talking about Pennywise. And this is where like Richie says that he's afraid of clowns and whatnot. Then they, I believe, no, the whole bike part happened after that though. Anyways, yeah, there's a whole parade going on, and if I can remember exactly, correctly, Beverly shows, the Losers Club her bathroom, and they see it's filled with blood, and there's like this little cleaning montage that they have, where they end up cleaning, Beverly's bathroom. And, let me try and remember. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. It's really hard when I write down notes like an idiot. I probably will go back again, maybe tomorrow, and try and watch it. And then I'll actually write down notes that time, and I'll probably record like a, maybe another live review, an exact one though, because this is kind of like the scenes that I remember. One of them, oh, you know what? I think I remember what happened. The Losers Club actually ends up going to the Neighbor house. I believe this is what happens after the parade, like after they were at the parade. I believe, though, I would have to probably make another review for this tomorrow. Like another spoiler review again, if I go watch it tomorrow, but that depends. But they go to the Neighbor house, and this is where the first confrontation of Pennywise happens, and it's really well done. It's actually terrifying as hell. So anyways, what happens is they go to the Neighbor house, but Bill is the one who wants to go the most. Everybody else, not really. They're kind of like, I don't want to go there, but they also don't want to leave Bill alone over there because they know Pennywise will get him. So Bill makes like this whole speech, and Richie makes another joke. After Bill's done with the speech, Richie goes, "Wow," and then Bill, and I believe it was Stan, he says, "What?" And then Richie's like, "He didn't stutter a single time," and, like, all surprised, and my theater laughed at that part. It was pretty funny. As I said before, Richie is really hilarious in this film. I didn't find him annoying at all, though. So they go into the neighborhood house, but they split up into three. It's Eddie, Richie, and Bill who go inside, and Stan, Bev, Mike, and Ben stay outside, like, watch, I guess, because they were afraid to go in. So that happens, and they're going in, and this is where Pennywise starts, like, using their fears against them. So, like, Eddie, he's, like, in the hallway, and then he hears the leper again, and he hears, like, the voice saying, Eddie, it's time to take your pill, and then, like, the floor opens, in front of the, doorway of the room that Bill and Richie are in. The door slams closed. There's, like, a hole in the floor. Eddie's looking down. The leper comes up behind him, and puts his, like, hand on his shoulder and says, "It's time for your pill." And then Eddie, like, falls down. He crashes onto a table and it breaks. And he, like, I guess he hit his head, so he fell unconscious. But we find out a little bit after that scene that he broke his arm. And his arm is, like, his bone is kind of, like, not sticking out of the skin, but you can kind of see it about to. And Richie and Bill are left in this room. And then, before the whole Eddie thing, this is where they see the girl that I mentioned earlier, the one whose mom was outside of the school with the police hoping to find her. This is where they see her on the floor calling for help upstairs, and they're about to go, but then she gets dragged off by Pennywise, and that comes into effect later on, in a little bit in this house. But after that, it's the whole Eddie scene that I explained. But then as the door slams, I guess it's kind of locked, and Bill and Richie can't open it. A door to the right opens, and it's, like, filled with all these stuff covered in, like, white blankets or whatnot. So Richie goes in there, and he's, like, looking around, and, like, the door slams behind him, and all these, like, I believe white blankets or white cloths come off the things that were in the room, and it's revealed to be a whole room filled with dolls of clowns. And there's a little Easter egg in there, and that's one of the dolls was actually a doll from the miniseries Pennywise. It was, like, dressed as the Tim Curry Pennywise, and that was a cool Easter egg that I found. There's also another Easter egg from the that kind of nods to the miniseries, which I'll explain later on because that happens later in the movie. So before the clown scene, when they first enter the house, Bill, Eddie, and Richie finds a sign, and it's of him. It's a picture of him, and it says "missing." And Richie starts freaking out because he doesn't want to go missing, and Bill's, like, trying to calm him down, telling him it's not real. It's it trying to mess with you. And he's, like, freaking out, and that comes into effect later on, because in the room, a coffin opens, and it shows the sign with, Richie, and it says "the missing," and in, like, red, I guess, I don't know if it's blood, or if it's just red marker, it's, like, across it, it's written "found," and Richie goes up there, up to the coffin, and he looks in, and it's like it's a doll representation of Richie, with maggots all over it. So then, Richie backs off and closes it. It slams shut, the coffin. He backs up, and then this is where the jump scare happens. It's Pennywise. He jumps out of the freaking box, and he's on top of it, and he's, like, looking down, and slowly raises his head and look at Richie and says, "Beep, beep, Richie." And he jumps off the coffin and just starts chasing after Richie. And this is where Bill ends up actually managing to open the door behind Richie, and this is where he saves Richie. They slam the door and assume Pennywise is stuck inside that room now. And they look on the bed in that room, well, next to them, in the next room. And it's a weird bed because Eddie's head, like, comes out, and it's like a zombie type head. And he says something. I wasn't exactly sure what he said, but he says something, and then, like, blood starts coming out of his mouth and starts coming from under the bed cushion. I believe it, the mattress, sorry, comes out from under the mattress, and it's like kind of an acid type blood. It was pretty weird, that scene. So while that's happening, Eddie gets up. He finds his arm is broken, and the door behind Bill and Richie, it went from one door to 3 different doors, and it was kind of, I guess, a little funny type, what's it called, like a little, what do you call this, poke to cliches, because it shows like 3 doors, and one of them, on the far left door, it's written, not scary at all. The middle door is called, has scary, and the door to the far right says very scary. So they decided to take the not scary at all door, and inside is the girl that I mentioned a little bit, that who got dragged by Pennywise, and her mom was waiting outside the school with the police, hoping to see her. This is where we see her, and she's hanging on like a rope from her hands. She's like just dangling there, and like half of her body's ripped off, and like her guts are still like hanging from under her stomach, and her legs are completely gone, and Richie literally has the audacity to say, where the fuck are her legs? In like a scared way, and it was fucking hilarious, actually. I'm not gonna lie, when he said, where the fuck are her legs? It was pretty funny. So anyway, she's like there, she's like hanging, and they turn back and they see like this kind of, I guess, acid or acid blood, depending what you, if you saw it, depending what you thought of what it was, about what it was. It's still like approaching them, so it cuts back to Eddie, and he has like this broken arm, right? And Pennywise shows up in front of him, and Pennywise is there just teasing Eddie. He's looking at his broken arm, and he's like, he's saying something about like wanting to eat him. He's like, you'll be a fine dinner, or something like that. And he's like slowly approaching Eddie, and Eddie's like already backed up against, I believe it was like a table or something. So that happens, and Bill and Richie finally get the guts to run past the dangling body with the missing legs, and this is when they end up finding Eddie, who's currently being teased by Pennywise, because Pennywise like right in front of him, and right as Pennywise starts opening his jaw filled with rows of teeth, he hears Bill and Richie come from upstairs to the first floor, and they yell Eddie, and Pennywise turns and he starts approaching them, and this is basically this scene where he starts approaching Bill and Richie. This is where the first confrontation happens, and it's really awesome. So what happens is Pennywise is approaching Bill and Richie as Eddie's watching in fear, helpless because his arm's broken. He can't do anything. And so Pennywise is approaching them, and Beverly comes out of nowhere and stabs like the top pieces of one of the fences from outside, the sharp parts. I guess she got that and just stabs Pennywise, and it goes right here from this part of his head, if I take off from this part right here, and it goes all the way through, and it's like all the way out like that, and he gets all messed up because like half of his face is like smiling, it's like all the rows of teeth, and the other half of his face is like normal, so it's kind of like two-faced. One eye's like all the way up here now, and it's like kind of like a chameleon. It's facing the wrong way, and the other one's facing the right way. And holy crap, he looked terrifying. So the rest of the Losers Club comes in, and Pennywise is like, he's like spinning around with this thing in his head, because I guess it hurt him. And one of the sharp parts that was sticking out of his head actually cuts Ben in the stomach, and this is what I mean by Ben got fucked up a lot. He gets like this giant slash across his stomach, and for a second there, I thought he was pretty doomed, because he actually fell back into the arms of Mike, or I believe it was Stan, actually. He fell into one of their arms, and Bill, Richie, and Beverly approach, Eddie, and they're like trying to help him up, and then Pennywise starts approaching them. He walks past Stan, Ben, and Mike, and he's approaching them, and this is like from the same scene from the trailer where it shows the kids cornered and yeah, it shows kids grouped up in a corner, and his hand like starts whipping out of the glove. I believe this is the part where he. Sorry, I had like I had something in my throat. This is the part where I think he turns into like a werewolf in this part, because it kind of looked like that from his hand. It wasn't like his original form, like the I'm gonna call it the creature form. It wasn't like that, because that is revealed later on in the movie. This is like a werewolf. It has like sharp claws, like dark skin. It could have been a werewolf, or it could have been some other creature, and he's like slowly approaching them. And I guess I'm trying to remember what happens, because I remember he's approaching them, and he flees for some apparent reason. I believe Mike starts hitting him with another part of the like metal fences from outside. I believe that he starts hitting him with that, and that's why Pennywise flees. Or it could be because Pennywise was already damaged. But yeah, Pennywise ends up fleeing. But before he flees, Richie and Eddie have this kind of like funny moment where Richie said, "I'm gonna snap your arm back in place," and Eddie yells, "Don't touch me, motherfucker!" And then like this was definitely a cringeworthy part, and not because it was like badly acted, but because of, you'll understand once I explain it right now. So what happens is, it's Eddie's broken arm, and Richie like grabs it and just like snaps it back into place, and you can hear like the bone just snap. It goes. It makes like a bone snapping sound, and I was like, it just felt so weird. It literally made me cringe, and not in the bad way, like how people like Leafy uses like, "Oh, this guy's fucking cringe." No, it was like seriously cringe. Like, it's kind of like seeing somebody's bone pop out of their elbow. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but Jesus Christ. And you would just go, like kind of like that. Anyways, yeah, whatever. I don't know why I just explained what cringe is. Most of you guys probably don't even know what the hell it is anyways, because a lot of people tend to use it the wrong way. Anyways, so Pennywise ends up fleeing with still the fucking piece of the fence in his head. So he ends up fleeing, and the Losers Club wins this confrontation. And I can't exactly remember what happened after that. Oh, wait, no, yeah, I can, actually. So, the Losers Club goes outside of the Neighbor house, and they're over there arguing, because they almost died, right? And, so they're arguing there and whatnot, and it's, like, it leads up to this whole, like, separation scene between the Losers Club, in which, in which Eddie gets, they go back to Eddie's house, and Eddie's mom is, like, freaking out, and she, like, puts Eddie in her car. It's similar to the scene in, the original miniseries where Eddie's mom says, "I don't want you hanging out with those kids anymore, Eddie." But, except in this film, she's, like, super aggressive towards the kids, and she says something to Beverly, because, there's all these rumors about Beverly being a slut, and so Eddie's mom says, I don't especially want a dirty girl like you around my son. And she just, like, drives off with Eddie. And, this is the whole separation scene here, because they're in, like, the middle of the road as they watch Eddie's car drive off. And, like, Richie gets mad, and so does Stan. And they like, don't want to... They're mad at Bill because they blame Bill for dragging them into the whole naval house and whatnot. So, Richie's, like, trying to make a point, and then he points at Ben's stomach and says, "Look at this motherfucker, he's still bleeding!" And that part was also funny as well. Because, as I said before, a lot of parts where Richie actually says bad words is usually the funny part, and it's a lot of the time in this film. And, okay, I'm trying, God damn, I'm trying to remember. Okay, so they're splitting up, right? And it's down... Everybody splits up, and it's down to only Bill and Beverly, who still keep in contact, and, they still believe they did the right thing when it came to confronting Pennywise, but they don't know if he's dead or not. So, it passes a month, or it passes a few months, actually, because it goes back to, oh, okay, my phone's dying. As I was saying, though, it goes back to, or it skips forward to August. Everybody's been split up for a long time, and we get caught up with Beverly, and I guess her and Bill scheduled, like, a meetup to hang out or something. and Beverly is like getting ready, and she's about to leave the house again, and the door's like locked, and she can't unlock it because she doesn't have the key. It's like those locks that I'm not sure exactly what they're called. There's like the locks that they clip or they lock in, and then you need like a key to go under and unlock it and whatnot. And her dad's there behind her, and this is where we get a reference to something from the book as well. And it's not shown in the movie, but it is kind of like referenced, and it's referenced that Beverly's dad actually has raped her before, like they've done it before, and I guess he did it forcefully because usually every time he'd walk up to Beverly, he always asked her, "Are you still my little girl?" And I always found that weird throughout the movie, and this explains why it felt weird. So he gets mad at Beverly, and he grabs her hand, and he says, "Are you still my little girl?" And she says no, and he gets all pissed off at this, and she like forcefully takes her hand away, and the force from that actually throws her back by accident, and she hits she hits little fuck, I don't know what to call it, alright? Whatever. She falls back anyways on the floor, and then Beverly's dad gets on top of her, and then he starts saying, do those boys know about us? But right as he's about to finish us, she kicks him in the balls, and then she kicks him in the face, and she runs to the bathroom. This is where I thought that she climbed out the window, but she actually hid in the bathtub with something glass. He opens the curtains, and she smashes it on its head, and I believe he killed her like that, I believe she killed him, like that, but it's not fully explained if he died or not. Anyways, so she knocks him out, and he's like on the ground, and there's blood coming from the back of his head. I guess he hit his head against the floor. So she turns, and then Pennywise is right there in the doorway, and he just grabs her by the neck. And it cuts to Bill, and he's like checking his watch to see why Beverly hasn't shown up. And then he goes to her house, and he goes inside, and the door's like unlocked, and the door's like completely open, which it wasn't when Beverly tried to get out. So he's like looking around, he's calling out for Beverly, and then he looks in the bathroom and sees Beverly's dad on the floor. Again, I'm not sure if he died or not. It wasn't exactly said if he died. And he checks Beverly's bedroom, and it says that if you try, you die, which kind of means that if he tried to go and save Beverly, he would die. So anyways, Bill sees this, and he calls up the rest of the Losers Club again. And this part is actually pretty awesome. This is like the reunion kind of where they come together, and this leads towards the final climax with the Losers Club versus Pennywise. So Eddie gets the call, and in this scene, I want to pause right here. It's kind of like we're reviewing, like we're watching the movie. I want to pause at this part where Eddie gets the call, because before that, Bill approaches Richie, and Richie's still pretty pissed actually. So then this is where Bill calls Eddie, and I want to pause it here because Eddie's like at his table eating, I guess, no, he's writing on his cast because he has a cast, and Beverly's bully actually signed it, but she put loser, so he's changing with like a red marker to lover, which was shown in one of the trailers, and he's there like writing the V over the S, and on the milk carton there, when he picks up the phone and he's like talking to Bill, he hangs up the phone, and he's about to like walk out of the house, and his mom actually comes up and stops him from walking out. But behind him, on the milk carton that was on the table, I noticed this Easter egg, and it was like I was barely able to notice it. And it was actually a picture of the original kid actor who played Bill. I don't know if you've seen the miniseries. If you have, you remember how Bill looks. There was a picture of him, and it showed missing on top, and it was on the milk carton. I thought it was a pretty cool Easter egg, actually. It was pretty clever, too. It was a little nod to the miniseries. But yeah, Eddie has an argument with her mom, and he just stomps out of the house. Ben, Mike, and Stan also also reunite as well, or have like a reunion with the Losers Club. Bill explains how Bev has gone missing, and they go to the Nabel house to look for her. But before that, we see them all like loaded up and ready to fight. And earlier in the film, when we were introduced to Mike, he had like this type of gun, and he had to like kill I believe it was like a sheep or a goat or something, and he couldn't do it. This kind of foreshadows what happens later on, because later on in the film, he brings that same gun with him to fight off Pennywise, and later in that scene, we also see him lose the gun, because while they're inside the Nabel house, they put like a rope, and they're like climbing down the well, and Mike is the last one, so he has to go, and behind him is Henry, and Henry like hits him with the pipe in the back, and this is where Mike loses the gun because he drops it, and the bullets fall down the well, and him and Henry start fighting for a little bit. They start like Henry uses the gun and he's about to shoot Mike, and then Mike uses like a rock to hit Henry in the head. And this is, I'm surprised Henry died. I don't think he died in the miniseries. I'm not sure if he died in the book. I still haven't read the book. But he gets hit in the head with the rock, and he, like, walks back, and he falls over the well. And you can actually, this is where the CGI is obvious. He falls on the well, and he just starts hitting all the rocks, and he just falls all the way to the bottom, and the Losers Club, or at least everybody who's down there in the well, see the body fall past them, and they're like, oh shit. So Mike still has to go down there, and it cuts to Stan, who's behind everybody in this little tunnel that they have in the well. So he's in there, right, and then all of a sudden he like gets I don't want to say teleported, but he gets kind of like transferred into this room where nobody else is, and he's like walking around on his own and whatnot, and then he goes into this little boiler room, I want to say it is, and you know, his fear, Pennywise turns into his fear, and then his fear kind of like lunges at him, and then it cuts back to the Losers Club, who's starts looking for Stan, and meanwhile they're looking for Bev as well. So they find Stan, and they think he's dead because, you know how I mentioned earlier the Pennywise with the multiple teeth, or the multiple rows of teeth? Well, it's on Stan's face, and they don't know if he's dead, but the teeth manage to claw into the sides of his face, so he is bleeding, but he's not dead. He manages to survive, and they kind of, I believe they hit this thing away with their weapons. But I can't exactly remember for sure if they did, like, scare it off or not. Because this is part of the, the final climax. And Stan's fear crawls into, like, this little tunnel and then comes back out, and it's Pennywise. And it goes back, Pennywise runs back into the tunnel. I guess he flees for a little bit. They find Beverly, and they try and help her down. But, before that, meanwhile, Bill had already been in there before them because he ran off to follow this Georgie hallucination he found. And it cuts to, it goes back to the Losers Club, who brings down Beverly, and she can't wake up, and Ben's like freaking out. He's like, what happened to her? And he ends up kissing her, and then she wakes up again, and she like doesn't even know what happened or anything. And it cuts. They start looking around for Mike, and they're calling, Bill, and they're calling his name, and it cuts to Bill, and he's like staring at something in a shocked way, and the camera pans, and it shows that it's once the Losers Club show up, it shows that it's Georgie. Georgie like walks out of somewhere, I forgot where, and his arm's like missing, and he's like, Bill, what took you so long? And this is not really Georgie, actually, so I don't think it is. So they start having like this talk, and Bill's like crying and whatnot, and he says he wishes Georgie can come back home. He picks up the gun that Mike had originally, and he says, too bad you're not Georgie, and he shoots, it's actually Pennywise as like, he turned himself into like Georgie, and this Georgie body like falls to the floor and starts shaking around and turns into Pennywise. And this is the final battle right here. This is where it begins, and it is awesome. So what happens is Pennywise gets up and he grabs Bill, and he tries to he tries to bargain with the Losers Club. He says either all the Losers Club can try and save all the Losers Club can try and save Bill, and they will all die, or they can leave Pennywise and Bill alone so Pennywise can eat Bill and be able to hibernate for the next 27 years, and the Losers Club can live the rest of their lives alive. And Richie starts saying, like, after all you put me through, Bill, you dragged us into this, you almost got me killed, you almost got all of us killed, and stuff like that. And he says, and now I have to kill this damn fucking clown. And he like grabs a bat from the pile of stuff that the kids owned. He grabs like a bat and just swings it at Pennywise and just hits Pennywise in the face. And the whole theater clapped at this scene because this is where the final battle began. I've said this multiple times, but this is truly where it began. Because everybody else starts getting like these melee weapons like to hit Pennywise. And Bill's like sitting there on the floor as everybody just starts ganging up on Pennywise, and they're just hitting him with like metal bars, and Richie's using the baseball bat. It was so epic. Everybody was cheering, and I'm glad they didn't do the whole inhaler has battery acid thing from the miniseries, because I didn't like that. They didn't have that. Pennywise was not damaged by the battery acid because there was none in the inhaler. Richie actually, before they go into the well, he ended up throwing all his medicine away because he found out he didn't need it. So, oh god, I have to end this pretty soon, so I'll make this quick. So they're like ganging up on Pennywise, right? Bill joins in as well, and they're just beating Pennywise down, and they realize Pennywise is getting weaker because they realize at that same moment Pennywise gets strong by feeding off their fear. And since they were fighting back, they were no longer scared of Pennywise. So Pennywise starts getting weaker and weaker, and he does like this weird backflip over this debris, and he's like hanging off of something. And he says, or before he does like the backflip and starts hanging onto something, Bill's like saying, this is where Bill like starts acknowledging the fact that Pennywise gets weaker if you're not afraid of him. So Pennywise like starts saying something, and then he like lets himself go, and he just falls into darkness. And this is where it kind of leads up to the chapter 2 of it, where they're gonna be adults. But I forgot to mention this part. Damn it! During the final battle, Pennywise actually gets an advantage at one point because everybody starts like jumping on top of Pennywise, and they're like trying to hold him down, but he's still standing. Richie and Bill are on his back and like choking Pennywise, and he just starts throwing them against the ground one by one, and his hands go from like regular like human hands to his like almost creature form, like their claws, like spider claws, from his original form, his creature form, and he's like slamming the ground trying to stab, I believe it was like, Bill. He's like trying to stab Bill these spider type claws, and this is when they start like beating him down again, after they get the advantage. So again, as I said, he does the whole backflip. They acknowledge that he gets weaker if they're not afraid of him. He lets himself go, and then it cuts to September, a month after the whole Pennywise climax, or Pennywise second confrontation. And they're sitting in a group, and this is their last time together as kids, because they're all going separate ways after this. They swear that if Pennywise isn't dead, they will come back again when Pennywise comes back, and they will kill him for sure. And this is where it starts like kind of hinting at a part 2 coming pretty soon. And they like swear on it and all that. And everybody just starts leaving because they're going their separate ways. It's actually pretty sad. And Beverly and Bill are left, and Beverly says she's going to Oregon, so she starts going away. And Bill catches up to her, and he kisses her at last because he actually has a crush on her in this film, as I mentioned before. And that's where the movie ends. And towards the end of the film, it shows it, and it says Chapter 1. This is where my theater started cheering. So I'll probably rant in another episode because my battery's currently dying. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, remember leave a like, rating, comment, subscribe. I give it an A+. Definitely recommend it. It's pretty terrifying but also funny. I hope you guys enjoyed my long movie review, and I will see you all next time. Peace.